Alright, so this will be the latest reaction I've ever done on a card. I have a good reason. I was away this weekend for my boy's birthday and did not want to drag any equipment across the country. But I will react to what I thought was a very, very good card. I made some decent money on this, but could have done even better, which I'll get into in a moment. Let's get into what happened at UFC Singapore right now. Alright, this one was a decent scrap. I did pick Choi, and from what I can remember, he did edge this fight. He took the first round by being more active, lost the second after getting pretty badly dropped at the beginning, but managed to survive. Then in the third, he fortuitously ended up on top after Errens slipped, and he saw out the rest of the round on top. This was not a bad fight, pretty technical. I think Errens should get another bite at the cherry despite having 2 losses in the promotion now out of 2. He's not a bad fighter. Yeah, I don't know how Aldrich has beaten the people she's beaten. She looks like a pudding, she has no power, and Noah actually managed to take her down 3 times in this fight, which is supposed to be Aldrich's strength. Noah is supposed to have a good ground game, but her positional sense is terrible, and maybe there's something that I'm just not seeing in Aldrich. She looks technically very bad on the ground and ineffective, but girls seem to really struggle with her down there. She must be pretty strong. Eventually in the second, after she reversed Na's third takedown of the fight, she laid down some ground and pound on Na, getting her out of there, who, let's be honest, is not very good or technical, but did have her moments in this fight. A win is a win, and Aldrich finally gets her first ever UFC finish. Alright, this went exactly as I said it would. I said they would go at it like rock'em sock'em robots. Kinoshita actually looked pretty decent to start this one out, and was having the better moments catching Goff at will. But this was always going to be about who the bigger dog was with the bigger balls, and Goff simply bit down when things got scrappy and caught Kinoshita towards the end of the round, dropping him and getting him out of there. I responded to another YouTuber who goes by the name of i9s in the comments just before this fight took place. Subscribe to him if you haven't, his content is excellent. Anyway, my official pick was the under, so I'll take the W, which would cost me in a pick later, so it does kind of even out. I'd keep Kinoshita around because even though his chin is made of glass, at least he goes for it. Nice win for Goff. He's a dog. Alright, now this was another one I got correctly, and if people had followed me on this one, way less parlays would have been murdered on this night. I mentioned in my breakdown that I was unconvinced by Bedoya and that Song would make this tough, and that proved to be correct. I did have Bedoya edging the first round, barely, by throwing up a variety of strikes, but once Song kind of started making reads, he pretty much took over in the second and third by being far more accurate and patient, and he actually managed to drop Bedoya in the third to secure a UD win. Now, Bedoya is fighting at welterweight, but it was mentioned in the commentary that he could probably drop down a few weight classes, and I agree with this. He is carrying around a lot of flubber, which at this level you just can't do. He's going to need to do this going forward if he wants to get his career back on track. There was some promise there, and he is a young guy. Alright, this was another one I got right. Now, I do like Chidi, but the fact is that this man has enough cardio for about 3 minutes of work, and I knew he would come unstuck because of this, particularly in this one. His kicking at range was effective to start out, and he was catching Oleksiejczuk, who ate some big shots like they were nothing, and then predictably you could see Chidi starting to fade, and that Mikel was just waiting to go into demon mode, which he did. As soon as he saw Chidi fading, he closed the range, started smashing away with shots to the body and head, with Chidi crumbling to the mat. Again, I think Chidi's going to be kept around for at least one more, because you get at least a good scrap from him, and it is exciting. But he's lost a little snap in his jabs, and in his kicks, and if he doesn't get you out in the first part of the first round, the guy's cooked. Very nice win for Mikel. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Yeah, this was an absolute battering. Kazama's not good enough to be at this level, and he will be fired. Armfield was just better. Really accurate striking, took his time, aggressively managed to drop Kazama twice before the ref mercifully stopped it. Now, he did protest the stoppage, but you could argue it should have been stopped with the first knockdown. And while he was still there after the second, it was clear and obvious that Kazama was going to end up with brain damage. He has no chance of even surviving. Hard to know if Armfield is that good or if the competition is just that horrible, but it was a nice win nonetheless. Goodbye, Kazama. Alright, I picked this one to go over 1.5, and I was convinced that Brzeski was going to be tough enough to make it past the midway point of the fight. I was actually confident as the fight started. Lucas was staying safe, keeping it at range. He tried to spam some leg kicks, which we all know is Costa's kryptonite. And it looked to me at that point that this was heading to a ploddy, sloppy fight that I predicted. And just as I was feeling really smug, Costa throws a Hail Mary overhand right, which wobbles Lucas. He turns to kind of stumble away like he was drunk, and then Costa obliged the bitch by following him and landing 2 nasty shots to Brzeski's side of the head, dropping him and ending the fight. I'm still unconvinced by Costa. He has a lot of weaknesses, but he got a finish, and he does deserve credit for that. Now I realize it does say Porker in the name here. I'm going to be real, I did not mean to do that. He's actually a really nice guy, and I think I'm a little bit too hard on him sometimes. I did say that Tafa was going to absolutely smash him, and that's exactly how this played out. This looked like light work and was a terrible style matchup from the beginning. Tafa might look a little bit tubby, but that Samoan tubbiness is just a little bit different. He was patient, he picked fighting shots, and he found a glancing blow about 2 minutes in, which basically face planted Porter. If Tafa can avoid smothering wrestlers, he should do quite well in the division. Secretly, he's a little bit more explosive than his older brother, and I can see him having a Tuivasa type career. Alright, a lot of people hated this fight. They said it was boring, but to be honest, I was really impressed here. Santos is no joke and was winning the striking battle in the first round, which was a concern for me going in. I did feel like Errens was maybe going to depend on her striking too much, which I'm not convinced by. Credit to Errens though, she clearly sees she wasn't going to win that way, and then made it dog ugly. She clinched with Santos and did the Marab approach, spamming unsuccessful takedowns, but controlling the situation and throwing off enough clinch knees and strikes to edge rounds 2 and 3. Was it the most exciting? Hell no. But one thing that pisses me off is when fighters go in there with a game plan, it doesn't work, and then they just stick to it. At 24, Blanchfield saw where this was going and changed it up. Most impressive win of her career in terms of the name value, and there is real championship potential here because of the bird brains we have in women's MMA. She may find her way to a belt just by not having a brain the size of a fucking grape. Alright, I'm slightly salty about this one, and this is where the aforementioned balancing comes into play here. I picked Nakamura to win by stoppage, and while he demonstrated impressively dominant wrestling, I underestimated how tough and resilient Fernie would be to get out of there. Now, I had 2 parlays going for this card, and one of them was for this one to not go the distance as the final leg to cash 600. And try as he might with arm bars, crucifixes, rear naked chokes, Rinya could not get the finish. And credit to Fernie for that. For that reason, despite picking the right fighter, I'm going to have to take the L on this one, because I did say Rinya was going to get the finish. Rinya's wrestling was outstanding. He looked good on the ground, and he's going to be a problem at bantamweight. I think Fernie on this performance deserves one more chance as well. Now, when the wheels come off, boy, do they come off. This is not a flyweight fight, by the way. It's a featherweight fight. I thought that Caceres edged the first round by being more active, and that Giga, who I still think is really overrated, won the second and third by landing the more impactful strikes. I'm fine with the outcome. My issue is that when I made this pick, it was clear to me that Caceres had more avenues to win, so it begs the question, why didn't he use those advantages? His corner was screaming at him to level change when the fight was slipping away, and did he? Did he fuck? He kept it striking and predictably lost the fight as a result of that. This is a man with 34 professional fights, the bulk of them in the UFC, and unlike Blanchfield, who saw where the wind was blowing and was willing to change things up and make it ugly, this pinhead stuck to the if it's broken, why fix it approach to a fight. Absolute idiot. Giga called out Rodriguez, who I honestly think would fuck him up, so at least we've got that to look forward to. Alright, I said that Smith was the better fighter by far, but I picked Spann because I felt that Smith has dramatically declined and seems to be stubbornly making excuses loss after loss. I feel like I can take what I said about Chidi earlier and just swap his name out for Spann. If he doesn't catch you and get you out of there in the first, he's basically fucked. Some people call this a robbery, which kind of surprised me, genuinely confusing. Smith landed way more in the first and in the third, and Spann landed more in the second. This was a clear 2-1 to Smith, and I actually picked Spann, so I know I'm not being biased here. Ultimately, though, this rematch was a total waste of everyone's time. Neither of these men are contenders. Smith's probably going to get a top 5 opponent, and I'll be waiting in the wings to bet against him. Spann is a one-trick pony that doesn't have any semblance of skill to trouble anyone in the top 10. So yeah, ultimately this fight was a waste of everyone's time. Alright, I have mixed feelings about this one. I called this matchup a joke, and while I stand by that to some extent, by all accounts it was fun to watch. Now the first round, Zombie had his moments, clearly went in there to go for it and go out in a blaze of glory. He had Max backtracking and actually caught him a few times. Men with lesser chins, which to be honest is everyone on Earth, would have been dropped or badly hurt. Max started using the range though and did edge the round by landing the more stinging shots, I felt. Now in the second, Max took over and did drop and faceplant Zombie, which should have been the end. But the ref didn't stop it as Max was reluctant to go in for the kill, and this just prolonged the inevitable. Sensing that it was do or die in the third, Zombie came out, went for broke, which we can always expect from him, marched forward and got absolutely smashed and brutally TKO'd. In a way, this was a fitting end to his legendary career. It was a great scrap, if not a little bit sad. But this was a mismatch from the start, and at least Zombie had his moments in what was a fun fight to watch at the very least. Okay, so I ended up going 9-4 on the card. This was the overview. Pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with the outcomes. I did end up making quite a bit of money on this one. Sorry, this has boosted me to a record of 236, 111. Win percentage stayed at 68%. Now we've got UFC Paris next week, which to be honest, I'm not very excited about. But at least, again, being in London, it's a nice early one for me. So at least I have the advantage of that. Have a great rest of the week. I'll be back tomorrow to break down that card. And yeah, thanks for everyone who patiently waited for this one. I'm sure it wasn't worth it.